Do you find it difficult to achieve realistic surface texture in your drawings? Do you find it frustrating when your images appear flat and lifeless? In this tutorial, along with part 2, I will go through the key equipment you will need to achieve success with your textural drawings, and I will cover 4 textures in part 1 and 4 in part 2. So let's get on with the equipment list. So the first thing on our equipment list is the paper. It is a Strathmore Bristol Smooth Surface paper. It's acid free and it's 11 inches by 14 inches. The reason I'm using this particular brand of paper is because of its smooth surface. Because the textures that we are going to be producing in these tutorials are very detailed, this is why I have chosen this particular brand of paper. So next thing to talk about is the pencils. We've got the graphite Staedtler pencils here that range from 2H to 6B, and I will be using pretty much all of these pencils in the tutorials 1 and 2. The next item on the equipment list is charcoal pencils, but I will be using these purely for the hair sample, just to give an extra bit of darkness and definition. The next item on the list is the Pentel 0.5 mechanical pencil. Obviously any mechanical pencil is fine, but a mechanical pencil is incredibly helpful for these particular tutorials because we will be going into a lot of detail. Next we have a selection of rubbers. So we have a kneadable putty rubber, plastic rubber and a mono zero retractable rubber. And then finally we have a paper stump, which is really good for blending. So to draw some nice crisp lines, I would suggest that you use a H pencil, and I started by measuring 1.5 centimetres from each edge and did each of my squares 4 centimetres, but if you want to start less detailed you could do 5 or 6 centimetres, and then I started measuring. I'm going to show you how to draw this if you are doing this yourself. I drew the squares initially so that they were 1.5 centimetres apart, but then when it came to the actual demonstration I've left a square in between blank, so that your viewing of the demonstration is easier and it's not distracted by having a square next to it. So I draw the lines straight down because then it makes it easier when you come to drawing the square underneath. You've got that guideline there already, but just draw that line really lightly so it's easier to rub out afterwards. And then draw your line across really lightly as well, so again you're not having to draw a line several times. And then when it comes to drawing your square afterwards, it becomes a lot easier. So now I'm measuring in those spaces in between, and that makes that a lot easier for later. And then again you draw them all the way down, remembering to do it very lightly. This is why we're using a H pencil. And I decided to leave a 3 centimetre gap in between the top squares and the bottom square so that there's a bit more space. And there are your finished boxes. You could add more underneath if you wanted to, if you decide to do more textures later. For this texture, I'm going to be using a HB and 2B pencil. There are different types of wood with different types of appearances. This one I'm using a reference image and I think it's oak. I can't be sure. I'm going to start by sketching the grains of the wood lightly and in a horizontal direction in a HB pencil. You can vary the shade with the amount of pressure that you add to your pencil. I'm then adding smaller lines afterwards, but at the moment what I'm going to do is add more pressure and add dark areas, say for example to the knots of the start adding smaller lines to smooth everything out and start to fill in the white spaces. For this wooden bars texture, you will need a mechanical pencil and a HB and 2B pencil. I will start by creating some horizontal outlines with a mechanical pencil. I then need to go over them again to emphasise the wooden boards. I will then need to start to draw tiny lines in a horizontal direction to replicate the direction of the wood. You will also notice that I have left knots for the texture because you'll probably recognise that there are knots in wood grain. So make sure that you leave a couple of those just to show the texture of the grain in the wood. And now I'm starting to fill those in and make those darker. And you'll notice that there are darker areas, and this is because I'm applying more pressure with my pencil. I'm now moving to HB pencil. I'm going to start to fill in the gaps and smooth everything out with tiny marks. So just fill in all the areas with the HB pencil. I will now swap to the mechanical pencil to add final details, like the grains of the wood and the knots, and to bring out the areas of the boards. For the brick wall texture, you will need a 2H, a HB, a 2B, a B, and a retractable eraser for rubbing out highlights. I'm going to start by sketching guidelines for the brickwork with a HB pencil. Then I'll start to sketch lines for the mortar around these. Now we have a basic brick outline for the wall, and we'll need to add texture to make it more realistic. I'm going to start by adding a line for each of the bricks. This with a 2B pencil, and I'm going to add an irregular outline to show the weathered effect of the bricks. I will then shade lightly inside each brick with a HB pencil. I will then add some dark mid-tones with a B pencil. I'll now add some small dots and details with the tip of the B pencil. For the mortar, shade lightly with a 2H pencil and shade slightly darker underneath each brick for 3D effect. Then take a sharp B or 2B pencil and add small dots for showing the texture. Finally, for a finishing touch, use the zero eraser to take highlights off of the top of each brick. For this grass texture, you will need a 2H, HB, 2B, 4B pencil and a zero eraser. I'm going to start by making random scratchy marks with a 2H and then go over this with a HB. When this is complete, you can take a 2B pencil. You will need to outline as many of the marks in the space as you can. You can also make more marks, and you will notice that it starts to bring out the tones. When this stage is complete, you can now take a sharp 4B pencil and fill in the gaps to make the blades of grass stand out. This is the most time-consuming stage. When you have finished sketching, you can take a mono 0 eraser and rub out some random highlight blades to make the image pop out further. If you would like to improve your textures skills further, don't forget to catch How to Draw Textures Part 2. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like if you would like to see more content like this. And if you have suggestions for further content, don't forget to leave suggestions in the comments below.